Huh?
Hmm? Huh.
Hello everyone and welcome back to Sticky History. Today's video is going to be all about the 1941 Japanese offensive on the American Navy base at Pearl Harbor. If you do enjoy the video, don't forget to give it a like, comment future any video requests and subscribe to the channel. On to the video. So the attack on Pearl Harbour took place on the 7th of December 1941. The base itself is in a place called Oahu in Hawaii and homed much of the USA's Pacific Fleet. The aim of the Japanese was to launch a surprise attack to destroy as much of this fleet as possible, leaving the Americans unable to retaliate to the offensives they had planned on Western territories in the southeast of Asia. But why was this necessary? Well, the US President Franklin D. Roosevelt made the decision to stop supplying the Japanese with materials that were vital to their war effort with China, including metals and fuels. This action provoked a Japanese invasion on French Indochina, which was a resource-rich area that could provide some of the materials that were lacking as a result of American policy. Vichy France, under the Nazi occupation, consented to this move as it was part of their overseas territory. A further move towards British Malaya caused Roosevelt to freeze Japanese assets in America, most notable of which was oil. At the time, roughly 94% of Japanese oil was imported, with around 8% coming from America alone. Hence, this was a big blow for their war effort. Britain and the Netherlands followed suit, losing Japan over 9/10 of their oil supplies in a short space of time. Whilst America insisted that Japan moves its troops from its newly gained territories, the Japanese refused to surrender any land that it had gained during the conquests. So this brings us to December of 1941, when the Japanese decided to launch several attacks on overseas British territories as well as on Pearl Harbor to clear a way to the Dutch colonies in modern-day Indonesia. The Japanese sent 6 aircraft carriers to sea with 414 planes on board to provide enough ammunition to carry out the mission. They adopted a strict policy of radio silence for the entirety of the 3,500-mile journey in order to protect the element of surprise and to avoid detection. When they arrived at the launch zone, which was around 230 miles north of the island, waves of planes were sent off to destroy the US Pacific Fleet. Led by Captain Mitsu Fukuda, the planes dropped bombs and fired torpedoes onto the unassuming base below, hitting 4 battleships in the first 5 minutes, including the USS Arizona. Unfortunately, this hit the ship's gunpowder stores, and the explosion killed 1,177 of the crew. Over the next 2 hours, Japanese fire had severely damaged or destroyed 21 warships and 188 aircrafts, with a human cost of 2,403 lives. However, luckily, the 3 US aircraft carriers were not at the harbour at the time of the attack and were therefore undamaged. What's more, the Japanese failed to destroy the entirety of the fuel tanks and repair shops, leaving many of the ships that were stationed at Pearl Harbor on December 7th in a repairable state, and went on to fight in other important battles during the war. There were also several hero stories to emerge from the events of 1941. For example, a third-class cook called Doris Miller helped wounded soldiers to safety despite having been on the USS West Virginia when it was struck by the Japanese torpedo. He then operated a Browning .5 caliber anti-aircraft machine gun, then returned to help the injured onto the top deck for rescue as the boat sank. A similar story comes from a pair of second lieutenant pilots, who, still suited from a Christmas party the night before, took to the skies and shot down 7 Japanese aircraft between them. All three were awarded military honours for their service. In the short term, however, the attack was a success for the Japanese, as it was paired with simultaneous bombings in the Philippines, Malaya, Hong Kong, Guam and Midway Island. This meant that the Japanese dominated the Pacific, and the USA were unable to offer an immediate naval response. On the other hand, the Pearl Harbor attacks were the immediate catalyst that brought America into the war. Despite the initial reluctance to join the war and a tendency to lean towards a more isolationist policy from many Americans, the nature of the attack, paired with the unifying delivery of Roosevelt's Day of Infamy speech, in which the president asked Congress for an official declaration of war, both the nation and Congress were now firmly on the side of war against Japan. Ultimately, as we have seen above, the military operation proved to be a very costly mistake for the Japanese, as their involvement provoked the American entrance to the war. It also signals a turning point in the wider world war against Nazi Germany, as the Allies were well supplied and supported by the US resources and brave troops. Adaptations of Pearl Harbor have been immortalised through the silver screen, including the 2001 film by the same name, as well as more recently the 2019 film Midway, depicting the Battle of Midway 6 months on from the Pearl Harbor offensive. Therefore, it is possible to conclude that these events were some of the most influential of the entire war and tipped the scales in favour of an Allied victory against Nazi Germany and Imperial Japan. As always, thank you very much for watching Sticky History. I really do hope you enjoyed this video on Pearl Harbor and more widely the entrance of the US into the Second World War. If you did, please don't forget to like, comment and subscribe to the channel. Bye!